If you're new around here, then hello, nice to meet you. And if you're returning, then thank you very fucking much for coming back. Today's video is going to be a tag video. I don't do too many of these. I think I've done the beauty one. Was it the beauty one? I done it maybe like a year ago. But I seen Lauren over at A Bizarre Gardening Accident. She's a new YouTube channel and I was following her over on Instagram, but she decided to start a beauty YouTube channel. Why the fuck not? And I've started following her over here as well now. I'm subscribed to her, so go and have a little look. I'll link her down below. And she was the one I seen initially doing this tag, but since I've actually seen her do it, I had a little Google to see what the questions were, and there's hundreds of people that have done it. Actually, one of my faves, Teresa's Dead, is one of them. I've seen, is it Samantha Ravndal's done it? Emily Noel's done it. Like, I've seen loads of people who've done it. This is going to be a tag about all the beauty palettes you own. Or is it beauty palettes, just eyeshadow palettes? I'm only doing eyeshadow palettes today because I thought, let's not get too expensive. Let's be fucking realistic here. I believe that the tag was actually created by somebody called Ali Glens. Ali Glens. I'll have to go and check her out as well. Like I said, I'm just like ending up finding so many new people at the moment and I fucking love it. I originally seen Lauren doing it and I thought, why not? That looks like a great tag to do. So, I've got the questions here. If that sounds like your sort of thing, then keep watching. Got myself a new mug, look. No chips. Jazzy from TK Maxx. Absolutely loving it. We'll have a little haul up soon of like stuff, if it's not already up. If it's up, I'll put it here. You know, you know. Anyway, so the questions are, first one, show your newest palette. Now, I've got quite a few new palettes, but I'm going to show you this one because, oh, by the way, I was at the doctor today, just in case you're like, what the fuck is that on your arm? So that's why. So I've got two, like, I may be able to put this one in something else, so I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to show you this one. This is probably my newest palette. This is from Ace Beauty. They are a little indie brand, and I will have an indie beauty haul type video coming up soon. Fucking haul. Like, what else do I say? Because in Scotland we don't use that word, but equally I'm like, what would we say? We would just say we bought loads of shit, so I don't know. Right, anyway, this is the Vintage Dawn palette from Ace Beauty. First of all, how fucking beautiful is this? It's just, I feel like this is, what do you call it? Great Gatsby gorgeousness, absolutely stunning. And the colours are amazing. Like, oh my god. Can't even tell you, the pigmentation on these shadows is astounding and it's really, really good. I've only used it once, but so far I'm really, really impressed with it. So this is my newest palette and I'm really glad I picked it up. The next one is show your oldest palette. Now, I said, like, I'd commented on Lauren's video and been like, Jesus Christ, if I was to show you my old palette, you'd be like, why are you even still holding on to that? Thing is, over the years, I have decluttered quite a lot. So there's loads that I don't have anymore. Which I'm kind of, in a nostalgic way, a little bit like, oh, wish I still had them. But I'm sure that I've showed this in a video before. I don't think this will be any surprise that this is my oldest palette. This is the Urban Decay Book of Shadows Volume 2. I also had, now there was a palette that Urban Decay brought out that was just purely purple. I don't know if it was Book of Shadows Volume 3 or Vice 1. And it was just totally purple on the top. I remember it, it was like really sleek. Like these ones were proper like ta-da, like big mirror and books and all this stuff inside. The Alice in Wonderland one was like this as well, even though the Alice in Wonderland one came out years after this. They kind of went back to their old style. But I can't remember the name of that purple one. That's gonna annoy me. Do you remember when Urban Decay was like, their tagline was beauty with an edge? I've said this before as well, like they at the time were like really cool. Like they were doing alternative type makeup. They don't really do that anymore. I think it's quite sad. So let me just show you. Yep, I've pulled the wee drawer out. This is the way it used to come. And actually the colours aren't too bad, but they are all shimmer. There is not a single matte in there. They're either shimmer or a satin finish. There's no matte at all. And there are some classics there, like Midnight Cowboy Rides Again. That was well known. I don't even think it's going to show up now. See, nowadays you'd look at that swatch and be like, that's shit. But at the time that was a really classic, like that was their known shade. Half Baked and Twice Baked are also in there. They're in the Naked palettes too. Perversion, which was the black one. I think that's their, what do you call it, mascara now, isn't it? And their eyeliner. For some reason, Ecstasy, which is this like purpley one up here, has got those little crumbly balls in it. And I mean, this palette is well over 10 years old. And actually, like, now I'm looking at it and I'm like, the swatches are awful, but it's a really, really old palette. I'm sure at the time when I was using it, it wasn't that bad. But I keep Sell Out, is that not in Naked too? I think it probably is. But this is absolutely my oldest palette. It came with the little potion pot of primer potion, and then it came with Onyx, was it? Like a black one and a brown one. But this is it here, and I feel a little bit like a while ago I done a declutter and I almost chucked this out, and then I was just like, nah, I can't. I need to hold on to it just for nostalgia reasons, because I remember having this and being like, thought I was the shit. Okay, next question is, show your most expensive palette. Now, I don't have a lot of expensive palettes, partly because I really am loath to pay a lot of money for things. I'm a bit fucking cheap that way. And it's not because I can't afford it. I just feel things like, oh, let's say, right, first of all, Natasha Denona, let's take her. If I can't go up and see the eyeshadows in a shop, which I know has totally changed now since COVID's came about, but if I can't go in and like swatch things, I'm very, very resistant to buy them. If it's something that's from the drugstore that you can't open, then fine. Like, I'm spending a $5 on it, fine, that's all right. But if you're gonna spend 100 and odd quid on a palette, I wanna know it works well, and I know I can watch YouTube videos, and I know I can watch, like, there's a million and one kind of reviews on the Natasha Denona palettes, and I'm just using her as an example. But I'm just like, I'm loath to pay that much for makeup when I know I could buy cheaper makeup and probably get it to look semi alright, like okay. I'm not a makeup artist, so I don't need it to look like super duper professional. And as for palettes that are maybe made by, let's say, Tom Ford or Victoria Beckham or Charlotte Tilbury even, I know she's not like a designer, but of that kind of aesthetic, there's part of me that's a little bit like, I don't want to buy into that. I'm a bit of an asshole that way. I'm a little bit like, I don't want to be like a label person. Yeah, that is me, absolutely. Like, nah, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be different. So there's part of me that's a bit like, by the way, everybody, I understand if you're switching off now, just being like, asshole. You know, I do own the odd designer item. I'm just a bit like, do you know what? See if I can look really good. See, for instance, right, here's a better example, because I'm making a bit of an arse of this. See if I thought I could get a plain black leather bag, like a tote bag, a black leather one, and I could have it, and it was the Yves Saint Laurent one, for instance, which is just a plain black tote bag. Or would I want the Yves Saint Laurent plain black tote bag with Yves Saint Laurent on it? Then no, I'm going to want the one that is labelless. And I know that costs a lot of money. I know it's maybe a good handbag, but I don't need anybody else to know that is what I'm buying. That's kind of how I feel about designer stuff. And so really expensive kind of makeup brands and things as well, I shy away from a lot of the time, but I'm really loath to pay, you know, like Giorgio Armani. Their foundation is supposed to be out of this world. I've never tried it because I don't wear foundation. So, sorry, total tangent here for the fact of talking about palettes. So I don't have many expensive ones. I think the most expensive palette I own is this one from NARS, and it is the NARS and Erdem. This was like a collaboration, and for anybody who doesn't know, somebody who's maybe just found me, just found this channel, when I was in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I went to university and studied fashion design, and I worked in London for about 6 months, 8 months probably actually, now that I think about it. And I worked for a designer called Erdem, who, if you Google now, is some pretty big shit. I'm pretty sure Beyonce was wearing this stuff in her last video. She's some pretty big shit. But it was maybe around 2007, 2008, 2009 that I worked there. And I say worked there, I was an intern. Absolutely, I wasn't getting fucking paid for being there. Fucking fashion for you. Anybody who wants to tell you that the devil wears Prada, it is not like that. So I thought this collection was beautiful. It was very, very aesthetically pleasing. Sorry, I had to turn the camera down a wee bit there so you could actually see this because it's very dull outside. I've got big lights on today. So this is the NARS Erdem palette, and it's got this beautiful like floral design on the front, and it's this like periwinkle, but not really periwinkle, almost like a hint of aqua blue colour, and inside the overlay has the beautiful like floral design as well. Now the colours are a bit of a disappointment, they're a bit of a letdown. Now there was 2 palettes that came out with this collection. I also have one of the lipsticks as well, but I just thought the package, I thought everything about it was absolutely stunning. So I thought I have to pick it up because anything that's to do with Erdem I pretty much buy, because I think he's a really nice designer, I think he's gorgeous. So I do like picking up things from Erdem. Obviously I wouldn't pick anything up that I thought I would never use. I have used this palette, but it's not as versatile. I wish I'd picked the other one up. The other one had like a navy and a mustard in it, and then the other colours were really odd, but the other palette was really dark, all very dark, whereas this was a bit lighter, so I hoped that I would get more use out of it, but the honest truth is I really haven't used it that much. This one here is probably the shade I like the most, this kind of burgundy colour, but these are all just a little bit boring. Like there's not really that much I can do with it. It certainly isn't a palette like I could just use this and that's me, but absolutely bought it for the label, for the name, and it's probably the most expensive thing that I bought in makeup, and it's obviously only a £6. You could get bigger ones. I mean, there's people who buy like big massive like £12 palettes that cost, like I say, £150, but this for me is probably my most expensive palette, but I'm still glad I picked it up. I will keep it. It's kind of, as I say, I'm a little bit of a collector, a nostalgic person when it comes to makeup, so I don't regret buying it, but I kind of wish I'd picked up the other one. Okay, so show your most affordable palette. Now, that's going to be really easy. It's probably going to be this one. It's what I've got in my eyes today. I actually am really impressed with these. These are the little, is it bite-sized beauty palettes from e.l.f. This is the jalapeno one, is that what it's called? Yeah, hot jalapeno. And it's like the green colours obviously, but it's gorgeous, look at it. And actually today, what I've got in my eyelids is all these colours. I don't have anything else on, it's just these. And they're so good as a little mini like green travel size, friendly, utterly cute palette. I really like these. Obviously this is a new purchase, but I have other affordable palettes, but I have to say I think this is probably my favourite at the moment, and it is the cheapest. This cost me £3. £3 fucking pounds. That is pretty impressive. Okay, next question is show your everyday palette. So it's gonna have to be this. It's the Naked Petite Heat palette. I bought this, basically I've got all the Naked, I've got so much Urban Decay stuff. It's probably one of my favourite brands. It certainly was when I really started getting into makeup, and now I've kind of dwindled off on them. But I have all the Naked palettes, and when they brought out the Heat palette, and then they started bringing out like fucking Honey palette, Ultraviolet palette, Cherry palette, blah blah blah, I was just like, yawn, like I'm done. And everybody was raving about the Heat palette. They loved it, and I, again, being me who's like, I don't want to be like everybody else because I'm a fucking asshole, I was just like, I really don't want to get that palette. I just I hate when things are really hyped up. It's the same with like TV shows and stuff. If people are really hyping something, I'll probably not watch it, and then I'll watch it like a year later and be like, oh shit, should have watched it. But I felt that way about the Heat palette, so I ended up buying the Petite Heat palette when it went on sale. So I got this for like £20, which maybe even less than that, might have been about £15 to £16. I think the bigger one was on sale for £20 at the time, and I got this one for about £16, and I use it to death. It is the one that basically, if I've got this with me, I could just, that's me every day. This colour all over the lid, this colour all over the lid. If I'm going to brighten it up or deepen it down a bit, like this is my go-to everyday palette. If I've got, if you had to take every single palette away from me, this is the one I'd want you to leave me with, because I think I would get the most looks out of it. Of course there's no greens in it, of course it is very much a warm toned palette, but I still think it would be my go-to for, above all else, other palettes. If you had to make me pick, it would probably be this one. I hope that's not one of the questions, because now I've kind of ruined it. Okay, next up is show your most colourful palette, and it absolutely has to be this one. Again, Urban Decay, what can I say? I used to be a massive fan. This is the Electric palette. People went fucking bananas over this palette, and rightfully so. I don't think that Urban Decay have done anything as notoriety, is that what I'm trying to say? They've really not done anything as interesting since. That's the absolute truth. I remember they brought out the Moondust palette. It was in a similar form to this, like all the little circles and stuff, but it was kind of shit. They didn't hit the mark. They basically saw that Naked was, you know, the wave they needed to ride, and they done that. But since I grew up with them, this to me, I was like, this is what I remember Urban Decay being all about. It was different. If you were going to like the rock clubs, the metal clubs, stuff like that, like, believe it or not, goths don't only wear black. Like, they actually really like big lime green colours and neons and things like that. So this was the best palette. It was so good. I just wish they ended up bringing out something, was it Electric 2? They brought something else out that was kind of similar, and I just thought, nah, that is not it. The only thing that's really missing from this palette is a really good yellow, and then it would probably be classified as a bit of a rainbow palette, but I love this palette. This one here, Thrash. This one here, my Glossier Sky Wash in Lawn, I put that on and I put that all over the top, and it looks stunning. That is how I get like my acid yellowy green eye. That is, I love it. The blue one, Chaos, absolutely gorgeous. This is like an almost like a royal blue. This one here is Gonzo, is more of like an aqua blue, more of a kind of seaside colour, but it's just amazing. It's a fantastic palette. This is what I remember Urban Decay being good for, and it's a shame that they don't really make things like this so much now. The next question is, show your smallest palette. Now, the e.l.f. one is probably going to be the smallest one, but I've already shown you that. So I'm going to show you this one because it's not bad, it's okay. So before Revolution basically ended up a little bit like Colourpop and releasing a new thing every other day, Revolution used to be okay, I felt. And actually, I really quite liked some of the chocolate bar palettes. Yes, they are the Too Faced dupes, but I quite liked some of their like little mini ones. And this one here is the I Heart Revolution Rose Gold chocolate bar palette. And actually the colours in it are really nice. You've got like a good, like this one especially for like autumn winter, it's like a burgundy colour. There's like this rose gold up here. There's a lovely mustard in this. It's so nice. But this is probably my only like mini sized palette. I suppose the Naked Heat Petite could be included as well. There's probably more colours in this than that, but I just thought I've already mentioned those two, so what else am I going to tell you? I actually still really continue to like this palette, and around about kind of this time of year is when I usually pull it out, because I just think it's a really good autumn palette. I think it's got good tones in it. I like it if I'm trying to do like a cherry colour dye or like a kind of burgundy pinky eye. It's really nice. I can't fault it. It's really good, and I must be really lucky because I always found that the Revolution shadows worked for me. I didn't find them to be too powdery or anything like that. Obviously this is a few years old now. I don't know if the quality of their little palettes has got a little bit shit. I seen that they'd released new 6-pack, was it 8-pan? Little mini ones like this in a tin, and they've got a green one. And I love green at the moment. Like I've always loved green, but especially just now. And they brought out, is it like a blue and a natural and maybe like a rosy one? I don't, like a cherry coloured one. They look kind of interesting, but I feel like I've already got this. I definitely don't need them. I probably won't pick them up. Okay, so show your biggest palette. Now, I'm in two minds what to show here because I do have a Revolution one. Let me just show you. And for sheer size, it isn't the biggest palette I own. The biggest one I own is probably that Urban Decay one again. But for the amount of shadows, it's probably that one. This is the Ultra Eyeshadows Revolution Flawless eyeshadow palette, I want to say. And again, like I've had it for ages. It's pretty much neutrals. There's a little bit of like green and blue in there, but it's just a neutral palette. Again, the shadows always worked quite well for me. I can't like moan. Basically, when I was selling my flat, I used to stay up in Fife in Scotland, and when I was selling my flat, I moved down to Alan's mum and dad's until we found somewhere to stay. And I didn't have any of my makeup because it was all in storage, and I thought I need to pick up something that's just going to do a lot of different jobs, and it was this one, and it kind of done that. Like, I can't really complain. So for the amount of eyeshadows, this is probably my biggest, but for size, maybe not. I don't know if you'll agree with that, but that's the way I'm going to do it. Alright, so the next one is show your palette with the best memory attached to it. Now, again, I could use that Urban Decay one, but I'm going to do, again, a little bit of an odd one here, but it's because I'm going to use this one. This is a MAC palette, and each of these shadows is basically one I made myself. The reason why I'm saying it's this is because every time that I go on a holiday or go on a trip or anything like that, now I think MAC, they are slightly overrated now. I think they're a kind of dying brand, if I'm honest with you. I think people buy MAC so they can say they've got MAC. But when I started watching YouTube, maybe back in 2007 or 8 or something like that, when people were just kind of getting into it and getting into makeup on YouTube, people would have like collections of MAC palettes. Like they didn't have this glass bit on the front. They just used to be a closed, like, sealed unit, and it was what I suppose makeup artists had, and you had to buy all the pans individually. Like, you couldn't buy them as sets as you do now, and it was always something that I was like, oh, I'd love to have. I would see all these American YouTubers with all these MAC eyeshadows, and I was like, oh my god, like they would have like a pink palette and a blue palette and the neutral palette and a green palette, and I was like, oh my god, like I want to have that. But obviously MAC is not a cheap brand. Like, it's quite expensive if you were to buy them all that way. So this is probably one of my more expensive, but actually maybe this should be my most expensive palette. But the reason why I love it is because every time I go on a trip, me and Alan travel a lot, and I like to go into the duty free and treat myself. And usually what I will pick up is a nail polish, and I always buy myself a MAC eyeshadow. So I do actually have this one. I have a 2-pan, like a little tiny MAC one, and I've got a 4-pan as well. And what I generally do is like utilize that and take the 4 with me, or take the 2 with me and leave one empty, and then I buy a new one. So that is why I like this, because there's different like memories attached to each of these eyeshadows, and I've been on a different place for every one that I own. So I suppose in a way that's probably why it's my like most memorable palette, so to speak. So the next question is show a palette that has been worth the hype. I don't know what one to pick, because I would probably say like a lot of mine haven't necessarily been hyped. The ones that were hyped, like the Naked 1, Naked 2, all these ones that got a lot of hype, nowadays when you look at them in the landscape of makeup now, they probably aren't worth the hype they got. But I don't know, I struggle to pick that one. I'll probably go with this one again, just because the Heat palette got so much hype. Like the Heat palette in general, the big one as well as this one, got so much hype. But actually the shadows are really, really good, and the payoff and the colours in these shadows are phenomenal. Like, I've always liked them, and I reach for it all the time. That's probably why I think it's worth the hype. What I will say though is, as I said, I never ever picked up the large Heat palette. I just kind of was like, yeah, don't need it. What I did pick up though was this. This is from Lacura. This is an Aldi brand. Do you get Aldi in America? I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. I know you get them here though, and Lacura release like dupes of the Naked palettes basically. This is the Naturals palette by Lacura. Tell a lie, this might be the Intense. I think they're all called Naturals, but this might be the Intense palette by Lacura. And it's an absolute ringer for the Heat palette, and the payoff on this, I actually done a video ages ago. I'll link it up here if I can find it. It's an old one now, but I done a video where I done one eye with this and one eye with this, and picked the similar colours obviously, because I've not got the big one, and you barely can see any difference between the two. It's really worth it. It didn't get enough hype, but I'm hyping it, and it's worth the hype. Okay, so in the opposite end of that, the next one is show a palette that is not worth the hype. Here's the truth, right? See the Naked palette. This is the original, came out, this must be 12 years old. It must be, surely. As you can see, it's got a good few ones that have hit pan now. And at the time, at its time, it was a product of its time. Does that make sense? Like, it was amazing. Everybody thought it was so good. It was one of the first things that YouTube sold, so to speak. One of those things that just everybody had to have it. Why? Because someone on YouTube told them about it. So it was super duper hyped. I do have to say I think this palette is still usable. I do have to say I think that you can create looks with it, although obviously there's only 2 mattes and the rest are all shimmer. So in this day and age you're a bit like, really? But I do still like this one. What I'll say is the Naked 2 was a cool toned lover's dream, and people, oh look how dirty that mirror is. The Naked 2 was a cool toned lover's dream. Again, only had 2 mattes in it. Yeah, 2 mattes. And I probably, like, I'm nearly hit pan on this one, but I've not hit pan on any of them. But I have to say, this one particularly, for me, I just didn't reach for as much as the Naked one. And then, the one that I think is definitely not worth the hype was the Naked 3. Naked 3 was the one that was like all the rose colours, like a pinky toned palette, and I have barely scratched this. I bought it simply because I was like, right, I've got the first one, I've got the second one, I need to buy a third one. But to be honest with you, like, I barely used it. I still barely use it. It's boring. It's so boring. Like, I look at the colours and I'm like, they're just drab. Yeah, okay, it's pinky, but it's not even like pinky enough to be pink. Does that make sense? I think this palette was purely sold off the back of the first 2. That's kind of why I felt by the time the Heat came out, by the time like Smoky came out, and is it Naked Reloaded and all these other fucking ones that they brought out, by the time they brought them out I was like, they are just selling off the back of the first 2. This is shit. I really didn't enjoy this. There has been a few times I've thought about decluttering this, but because I've got all 3, again, I'm a bit of a collector. I thought I'll keep a hold of them. You never know, maybe in years to come people will be like, this trio is a collector's item. I don't know, we'll see, There's probably a million people. I feel like lots of people will have the middle one. Quite a lot of people will have these 2, but not so many people will have this one on the end. So, alright, next up is show your favourite palette from your favourite brand. And I'm sorry, this is going to be like a fucking broken record, but it's going to be Urban Decay. It's so strange because I haven't bought, well, with the exception of the Born to Run palette that I picked up quite recently, and even at that, that's a couple of years old now. It wasn't, I haven't bought anything from Urban Decay in recent years, but when, the majority of my palettes are Urban Decay, but it's just because I was a massive fan of them when I started getting into makeup, so I'm sorry if it's getting a bit repetitive. But my favourite palette from them that I probably own is the Vice 2. It's this one. And the next question is, show your most used palette, which probably is going to be either the Heat Petite or this one. Simply because this has seen, like, this whole pan is out, hit pan on this one as well. You would not believe how often this has been used. You do not believe the places in the world this thing has travelled to. I, like, for so long, this was my go-to. Throughout my 20s, if I was going to, you know, you're going to stay at friends, you're going to go and have drinks at friends first before you go out to the club, whatever. Makes me sound dead fancy, like as if I was like in the club, but there was times in my life where I was probably out every single fucking night of the week, and this would be with me, and it would be a matter of, I would bring this, 40 million different versions of an outfit to change into, a couple of bottles of wine, and this was my favourite because the size of the mirror on it, I don't even know, it's dirty, I know, sorry, but the size of the mirror on it was huge. It could sit as well. It didn't have, like, it has mirror Viagra, so it stands up on its own. It's not floppy. And basically this got used to death. So many people use this as well. That's probably really unhygienic, but so many people use this for a night out. The colour palette in it I loved. It was all these jewel tones. You could get natural here, neutral, and that's probably the ones I've hit pan on most. But these here, like, there's your proper pink Urban Decay, not Naked 3. There's your proper pink. The copper one I loved, and then obviously if you want to do like a dark smoky eye, if you were going to the club, metal club, goths. This along with the electric palette are probably two of my favourites from Urban Decay, and I feel like after these ones, that's when I just fell out of love with Urban Decay, because I felt like everything else they were doing was predominantly naked stuff and I wasn't interested in that. And as I say, the most used palette is again probably this one. You can tell I have used this a lot. What I would say though is that after doing this little video, I have barely mentioned any of the other palettes there that I have, so I'm just going to do a few honourable mentions if that's alright. Again, this is probably a brand that I seen so many American YouTubers talking about years and years ago, Inglot, and these like magnetic freedom palettes, and they all like stuck together and it's all magnetic. I thought it was amazing. So when Inglot, actually I tell a lie, I didn't buy these in the UK. I was in Europe and I think it was in Poland, and I seen that Inglot were a thing in Poland and I was like, holy shit, give me everything you've got. So I just thought I would mention them because I remember Inglot being hot shit, like being really hot shit. Nowadays, there was an Inglot in Silverburn in Glasgow, it's not there anymore. I don't think they took off here. I don't think people were that interested here. They are a bit hit or miss. When I remember seeing them a lot, they were at IMATs, they were doing this, they were doing that years ago. The reason they were so popular was because the formula of their eyeshadows was so impressive. It was so good. And it still is, like I wouldn't dispute that. But now I feel like they're trying to branch into every other thing. And it's just, they're not quite a known brand here. And people in the UK are more inclined, rather than pick up indie brands, people in the UK are much more inclined to stick to what they know. So I don't think they took off here, and I don't really know if anywhere still has an Inglot in the UK or if they've just pulled out and they're only online. The other one I want to mention is Sleek, because I also remember these being, like these little palettes being, is it Eye Divine? Eye Divine, wait a minute. Yeah, Eye Divine palettes. There was loads of different ones, and I remember distinctly the Storm palette being the one that like everybody had on YouTube. And I had another one, was it I Dream or something? So I had the Storm one, and then I had like Oh So Special, I think that's what it was. It was like a peachy one. I had that as well, and I decluttered them because I just was like, I don't need them, I've got everything I need in other palettes. But I kept this one. This is the Nautical Collection Calm Before the Storm, because actually the colours in it are really nice, and for going on holiday and stuff, I always think it's a really nice little palette just to slip in your case, because the colours are so beautiful. And again, these eyeshadows, the formula were actually okay. So I thought I would mention that as well. I wondered if anybody else had remembered the Storm palette, because I remember people going absolutely tits up for the Eye Divine palettes, especially the Storm palette. So that's it, that's my eyeshadow palette tag. I feel like I've not even mentioned so many things, but like with regards to the questions, it didn't come into it. I didn't see any point in like sitting here just saying, and this is this one, and this is this one. Like, fuck that, this video is going to be boring enough anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will maybe tag some people down below. Yeah, I might do it. Fuck that. If you've watched this, look down below. You might be tagged, I don't know. And I would love to see you making the video. If not, I will put the questions below, and if you decide to join in, let me know. Shoot me a message over on Instagram, like a DM or something. Let me know you are doing it. That would be lovely. And I'll see you all again soon. Bye.